Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a setup on this 2013 SGJ, Gibson SGJ. This is my guitar. It's actually my favourite guitar. I love this thing. I love how it plays. I love how it feels. I love how it sounds. And it's been a while since I did a setup on her, so I thought it's about time I showed her some love. So I'm going to be going through the process of what I do when I set up this guitar in particular. So if you have a Gibson SG, it's going to be a similar kind of thing. Won't be exactly the same, especially if yours is a 22 fret model. This is a 24 fret model. And I'll try and speed things up so that it's not too long a video. I'm not going to film everything in its entirety. I'm not going to film me cleaning all of the fretboard and polishing every fret or anything like that, or it would be just a very long video. But I'm just going to show you the order, the process that I go through when I'm setting up this guitar, and probably most other guitars as well. Certainly most twin humbucker type guitars. Before I go over to the bench and start working on it though, if I can just please remind you, if you do watch my videos and you get anything at all out of them, please do consider subscribing to help me to keep making them. Leave a like, a comment, all of that usual stuff. But without further ado, let me show you how I set up a Gibson SG or a similar style guitar. The first step, what I do first, I tune the guitar up to pitch, which I've done. This is tuned, and I take measurements with the old strings on. Again, I've already done all of this, but I'll just take you through the process. So the guitar's in tune, so I'm going to take a measurement at the 1st fret, at the 17th fret, which is where the neck joins the body on this guitar. It might be different on your guitar, but here it's around about the 17th fret. This is a 24 fret guitar. So a measurement at the 1st fret, measurement at the 17th fret, and then a measure somewhere in the middle of the neck between that 17th and 1st, which is round about 7th or 8th. So I'll take this one first. Now I use feeler gauges. If you prefer, you can use a steel rule, but make sure that it has increments of 64ths, and right at the end make sure it can measure in 64ths of an inch. You could use that. You could use a tool such as one of these. You can use that to measure your string height, but I prefer to use my feeler gauges. So all I'll do is I'll measure this from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, and I want that feeler gauge to just slide under, but without lifting the string up. So it just slides nicely under, and then I'll record whatever that is. And then I'll do the same on the treble side. So I'll take those two measurements first. Once I've got those, I'll get a capo, put that on the 1st fret. Now I'm going to measure the 7th and 8th fret, but to do this I'm going to hold down the string where the neck joins the body again, so 17th fret. Going to hold that down, and now I'm going to measure round about the 7th or 8th fret. I'm going to use the 7th. Same again, I'm going to measure on the low string first, then hold down the high string, measure that, record those two measurements. Then I'm going to record the measurement at the 17th fret, or wherever your neck joins your body on your guitar. I'm not going to hold anything down this time, but we've still got this capo on. Same again, low side, high side, record those measurements. So now we should have 6 measurements for the 3 for the low side, 3 for the high side. Once I've done that, I can get rid of the capo. Don't need that just yet anymore. So now I will measure the pickups, so the pickup heights, and I'll do the same again. To measure the pickups, we just hold down the string at the last fret. You don't need a capo or anything on. Hold it down at the last fret. Again, I use my feeler gauges, slide those under there, and we're measuring from the top of the pole piece to the bottom of the string, again without lifting that string up. Do that on both sides for both pickups, neck pickup, bridge pickup. Record those measurements, and then I'm going to measure the bridge and stop bar tailpiece. Now I might use a ruler for this, or I might use a set of digital calipers, and that's it. That's all my measurements that I need to get started. So step 2, what I do next is I will get a fret rocker tool. Like this one. Now again, I've already done this, and I will check all of my frets for level. So we just lay it across 3 frets at a time. That's why we've got the different size edges. So when we get up here, the frets are closer together, so we'll have to use the smaller edge, and depending on which edge we can use, we go across all of the frets this way, from the high string down to the low string, and we check to see if it rocks. If it rocks, it means that the middle one of the 3 that you're covering, don't cover any more than 3 or it won't work. It means that that middle one is high, and then you would mark that with a marker pen, a Sharpie or something. You would just mark the top of the fret where it's high. Now it might be high all the way across, or it might just be high on one side or on the other side, or it might just be high in the middle. You mark it wherever it's high, and you go across and do all the frets. Now I've already marked mine. I've got 3 high frets, and they're all up here. So I've got fret number 18 here is high all the way across. Fret number 22 is high all the way across, and then fret number 23 is high, but only on this treble side, from the G string to the E string. So I've already marked them with my Sharpie, so I know where they are. And now I'm going to have to file those down and recrown them. Now they're not bad, they're just very slightly high, so it's not going to take much to get those level and recrowned. But you might have more. You might have a load of frets that are high, and you might have to finish up leveling the entire fretboard and recrowning every fret. So now on to step 3. We can take the old strings off. So make sure you loosen the strings before you cut them. Some people just cut them while they're still under tension. You don't want to do that, because if you do, you're just going to break the posts, the tuning posts. You don't want to do that. So always loosen the strings off before you cut them, if you're going to cut them. Also, because this guitar has got open humbuckers, I don't want to cut the strings down here, because I might get some stray bits of metal particles going into the humbuckers or into the cavities, and that can kill the humbuckers. So I'm going to cut them up here somewhere, well away from those pickups. But I am going to cover those pickups anyway, just to be on the safe side. So I'm just going to get a bit of tape and cover those pickups, because I will be filing these frets down up at this end of the neck, and I don't want any metal filings getting into these pickups, so I want to make sure they're protected. So just use some low tack tape or whatever. You can use a piece of paper cut to the correct size, or cloth. It doesn't matter what you use really, just make sure that no metal filings are going to be able to get into those pickup cavities or onto the pole pieces. So that's it, I can cut my strings off now. Okay, step 4, I'm going to sort out any problem frets I've got, which in my case is just these 3, and I'm just going to use a very fine spot leveling file for this. I'm not going to use my actual leveling file, because this would remove too much material. I don't want to remove a lot of material because they're not that high. So I'm just going to use this and very gently file those frets down until that marker pen has gone. So I've made a mental note just in case I can't see any of the marker of which frets are high. So I know it's 18 and 22 all the way across, and then fret number 23 just on this treble edge. So I'm going to just file that down, brush away any debris. You'll notice I'm brushing away from the pickups, even though I've still got the pickups covered. And I'm just going to check these files now. I'm going to check these frets. Okay, so that's still a little bit high in the middle there. And on this end, it's fine on that end. So I'm just going to do a bit more on the middle and the end. Tiny little bit there on the end. That one's okay, so let's try fret 22. That's okay. Fret 23, that's still high. That's better. It's still a little bit high in the middle of those 3 treble strings. That's it, that's that job done. So I just need to re-crown those 3 frets now. I'm just going to use a crowning file. This is a good quality diamond crowning file. I'm going to use a fret guard on there and just re-crown these 3 frets. Let's just have a look at those. I like to use a magnifying glass for this. Make sure that they're nice and round, which they are on that side. Yeah, I'm happy with those. So that's that job done, and all I'm going to do now is polish those frets, but I'll do that later. Step 5, what I'm going to do next is get some very fine abrasive paper. This is 1200 grit, something that's not going to remove hardly any material, and I'm going to get a feeler gauge that just fits into the nut slot. I'm going to cut some strips of that 1200 grit paper, put that over my feeler gauge that fits into the slot, leave it just a little bit loose, and then just gently file those down. I won't make you watch all that, I'll just do the first one for you to show you what I do. So I wrap that abrasive paper around the end of my feeler gauge, stick it in the slot, and just very gently, half a dozen times backwards and forwards, I'm basically just cleaning that slot. I'm not cutting it any deeper, I'm just cleaning it and smoothing it. So I'm going to do that now across all of these 6. Step 6 is an easy one. I'm just going to go around the guitar and tighten up all of the screws and nuts that I can. So the tuner, these nuts here, I'm going to make sure they're tight. I'm also going to check these screws holding the tuners to the back of the headstock, make sure those are tight. I'm going to tighten up the strap buttons, this one and the one on the end, make sure they're secure and tight. And I'm going to do the jack socket as well. I'm going to make sure that's tight and make sure this ring is tight around the rhythm treble switch so that that doesn't move. So very easy, won't make you watch that. Just go around your guitar and check all the screws. Don't over tighten them, but make sure that they are nicely nipped up and they're not loose. That's all my nuts and screws tightened up. These things do work themselves loose over time, especially these nuts here. And you might have a screw on the end of your tuning peg there. Check those as well. And another little tip is on the back sometimes of the tuners you'll have a tiny little hole, and if you've ever wondered what that little hole is for, it's so that you can put a drop of oil in there to make your tuners a bit more smooth. So don't be afraid of getting some light machine oil and popping a drop of that in these holes. That's what they're there for. Just don't go mad, don't flood them, just put a little tiny drop in. Step 7, another easy one. I'm just going to give the guitar a bit of a clean while I can, while I've got the strings off. I'm just going to give everything a quick once over. I'm not going to go mad, not polishing it or anything like that. I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean, especially around the pickups and under the bridge and saddle areas where I can't usually get because of the strings. So I'm going to clean all of this bit. And then the main thing I'm going to clean is the fretboard. Now I used to use a razor blade to get all the top surface gunk off. That's a bit dangerous sometimes if you're not careful. So I've started using these things. They're like little plastic razor blades. I think I got this off Temu.com, and you get the handle with it, and it's great for a variety of jobs. I like it to clean the fretboard because it doesn't damage anything, and it's still sharp, so you can get right into the edges of those frets. So I'm just going to clean that fretboard. Once I've cleaned the top surface gunk off with this, wipe it down and then get a bit of lighter fluid on a different bit of cloth. Put the lighter fluid on the cloth, not on the neck. Just give it a rub down and then wipe it off with some towel. Step 8, I'm just going to polish the frets up a little bit using a fret guard and some very fine 40 steel wool. These frets, I've checked them, they're in pretty good condition. So this is all they need, is just a bit of a shine putting on them. They've got a nice shine to them now, those frets. And so now I'm going to oil the fretboard because it's looking a bit dry. It's not had any oil on it for a while. And you can use lemon oil or whatever for this. I like to use this fine mineral oil that I've found. And again, with this, you want to put it on the cloth, not on the fretboard. Some people put it on the fretboard, but I never do. You don't want a lot. That little bit there, that will cover the entire fretboard. I'm just going to rub that in and then leave it for a minute to soak in, and then wipe off any excess, and that's that job done. There we are, we've got a nice dark neck again with some nice shiny frets. All I've got left to do on this guitar is to put a new set of strings on and set up the intonation on the saddle. But you might have a bit more work at this stage to do. You might decide that the string action was too high when you took your initial measurements, so you might want to lower the action at this end, at the nut end or at the bridge end. You might have decided there was too much relief in the middle of the neck, in which case you're going to want to make a truss rod adjustment to straighten the neck out. But this guitar was pretty much set up how I like it, so in theory all I should have to do is put on my new strings. I'm putting on the same gauge that I took off, so these are 10 to 46 D'Addario. So I'm going to put the strings on and then I'm going to play the guitar in a bit until it stays in tune, and then the final stage, the final job, is adjusting the intonation. That's the guitar all finished, strung up, tuned up and intonated. For anyone who's interested, the measurements, final measurements on this guitar, at the first fret on the low side I've got 0.020 of an inch and 0.010 of an inch on the high side. At the 17th fret, with a capo on, remember, at the first fret for this measurement, I've got 0.075 of an inch on the low side and 0.047 of an inch on the high side. That's at the 17th fret. And then still with the capo on and with a finger holding down at the 17th fret, I measured at the 7th fret the neck relief, and that was 0.010 on the low side and 0.008 of an inch on the high side. And then my pickup height measurements, I just set them all to 3/32 of an inch and then adjusted them while I was playing the guitar. So if I thought I'd got too much bass on this neck pickup, I just lowered it a bit. I didn't go any higher than 3/32 of an inch. If something didn't sound balanced, I would lower either of the pickups rather than higher them up and bring them closer to the strings. I didn't want to go any closer than 3/32 of an inch. So those are my measurements for this guitar. Now, they may or may not work for your guitar if you've got a similar guitar to this, but every guitar is different, and also it depends on what gauge strings you're using and your general playing style. Have you got a light touch, a medium touch, a heavy touch? All of these things will have an influence on your personal setup. But this is now all nicely tuned up and intonated. That's the video for this week. Sorry it was quite a long one, this one, but I've tried to make it as short as I can by speeding parts up. But I wanted to give you the measurements and everything that I use. So anyway, that's it from me for this week. I'll be back with another one for you next week. Until then, look after yourselves, take care, and bye for now.